Hello guys, and welcome back to a J77 movie review. The movie I'm going to be talking about is a movie that's been out for almost a year and a half now. I recently saw it in stars. This is my second time seeing this film, and it's Venom. A movie that I'm going to be very honest with you. I didn't have much high hopes when the film came out. When I finally saw it myself, I was still pretty much on the fence about what I saw. And I really wasn't going to talk about it too much because, frankly, it's an old film. I probably would have left it for a flashback down the road. But now with the events of what's going on with Spider-Man, with who's now directing Venom 2, the announcement that Woody Harrelson will reprise his role and play Carnage possibly in the next film. That's the only way you. That's the only reason why he would sign him on, because he already set up the Carnage storyline. It's only fitting that I see this re-see this film again, just if anything else, to see how Tom Hardy's Spider-Man will fit in if he can. Because you got to remember, it is the Spider-Man that we have seen thus far is an M.C.U Spider-Man, more so than a Sony one. So to see the transaction, I'm kind of wondering if the colorful Spider-Man that we have seen will actually match well or fare well with what the plans of Sony have, and if not, what they have to do to pretty much match this character. Because again, this is going to be a standalone film, and I don't have a problem with Spider-Man being a standalone film. I don't even have a problem with Sony making these films because, like I said before, they have a good track record. As much as people are groaning at the thought that they're making a film, remember the first two Spider-Mans are considered to be one of the top Spider-Man films, and let's not forget Spider-Man Enter the Spider-Verse. That is revered as the best Spider-Man film, and it's an animated film out the whole bunch. So these are all Sony's, not Disney. So we got to keep that in mind. So they are capable, when they let their writers do their job, of making a good Spider-Man film. The question is, was this a good Venom film, and what they need to do to change if they want to have any success in making the Finest First become alive. Well, let me just go right now before I go any further with this movie. This film was met with pretty much not as much of a split with the audience versus the critics. I like to say that because always the critics have a different view than the audience. If I gotta give you a percentage, it was 28% critics who it was mostly in the negative. People did not like the critics did not like this film at all. Even Double Toasted, which is pretty much a more progressive style of review, who just basically crap on this film. I think they gave it some old BS in their rating. However, the fans was mixed on it. They actually did enjoy some of the stuff that they ever had in this series, and I think they have done that. The fans were more open to this type of Venom. What's my opinion on it? I am in the side of the fans. I felt it's mixed to fair, in my opinion. I'm more on the fair side with this. I really did like Eddie Brock's Tom Hardy portrayal of Eddie Brock a lot more than I actually would expect. He is pretty much a person who's down on luck because he did an interview with someone who was dealing with a top secret project, and that person pretty much destroyed his career. So it pretty much happened to him as was a reporter. Now he's not anymore, until a lady who works in a lab explained all the shadiness that went down, which led to him actually getting sneaked into the lab, which he encountered a fellow worker, whatever, and it actually ended up the symbiote that actually was in that worker ended up being actually became attached to him, being his host. I actually was kind of wondering how he got to that host, but now that they showed it, I said, okay, well, at least they established that part. Tom Hardy was not the problem in this film. I thought he did good for what he was working with, as well as Michelle Williams. I thought both of them was fine in this film. The problem is the story. The problem is the camera. The problem is just with the structure. The structure was all over the place. I mean, this was not the best camera work film I have seen in a long time. In fact, if it wasn't for the actors in this film, this would have probably been a waste of time. I felt it captured the feel of what they was doing action-wise. When it worked, it worked. But man, they had to go through a lot of stuff that didn't work. Let's first start with how they portrayed Venom. Venom design-wise was pretty good. I think if they were trying to capture or mimic something with Eddie Brock's original take on Spider-Man 3, but I think they did it better here. I liked the design. I thought it was great. The only nitpick I probably had, I kind of wish that Venom had the spider symbol on his chest. It didn't happen, but this is a different take on it. That's fine. I can accept that. I thought the design was cool. I had no problem with the design whatsoever, as well as the a different take of other Venom. The female Venom, spoiler alert if you haven't seen the film, but then again it's almost a year and a half old, so I can't really tell you much about that. But I felt that for the most part, I thought they did a good job of portraying Venom when it's done right. The fight scenes with the two Venoms, however, it wasn't the prettiest. I will say that. I understand what they were doing. I think in many ways they did copy some of the elements from the comic book, and I think that was what it is. The problem is that there really wasn't no color separating the two. It was very, very sloppy. I didn't know what the hell was going on, why this was happening. It just happened, and it just made no sense to me whatsoever what was going on. I know there was a bad Venom that wanted to use the human just so they can bring down more symbiotes to attack Earth and to eat it and destroy it. You have Venom, which was supposed to be, I wouldn't say a bad guy in many ways, because when I read the comic book on the Venom series, Eddie Brock really had more of a beef against Peter Parker and Spider-Man, because he felt that Spider-Man ruined his career, even though part of that was his fault. Here they didn't really exercise that, because again they wanted to establish his own universe from here. That's fine. Minus Peter Parker, this is a different storyline. I had no problem with that. And for the most part, he's still an anti-hero in this one, where he's more of an anti-villain. I don't remember consider Venom to be a full villain in the Spider-Man films. He got this hatred towards Peter Parker and anything else, and he only really kills when he has to, when he's realizing he's got the caught everything else. Still, it doesn't excuse what he did, but you can sense what kind of character was going with him with the series, and that was made him such a popular character to begin with. Here, he's more of an anti-hero, and only when deemed necessary. And that's actually something of a big change. And I don't really mind the change for too much. Venom still was portrayed very aggressively in this film. And again, I thought that some of the action scenes that they did with him pretty much was pretty good. The motorcycle scene was okay. Was almost ruined by something else that I will bring into this film later. As for the actors, for the most part, I thought they was fine. I felt that they did good for the script they was given. Keep that in mind when I say that. The script they was given. And that's the whole thing about what this film is. Things that was done good, and it stand out. Things that was done bad, it really stand out. And that's what really kept me from giving this such a good rating, because again, there's some things I just can't excuse from this. One of the things is, I have to say, from the time this film came out, this was one of the worst camera work I have ever seen in a film like this. I thought that Christopher Nolan camera work and editing was bad in The Dark Knight Begins, and that was when the biggest weakness of that film was that the editing and the way they were shooting the camera with the action scenes was just all over the place, where you didn't even know what the hell was going on in most of the time. Here, it was just it was just either if it was not cut so quickly, the shaky cam was getting on my nerves. It really made it hard to follow what the hell was going on. Another thing is that they didn't really separate these Venoms characters, these symbiote characters from one another. They both looked at the same color, so when they did clash, it's almost like this giant CGI blob on the screen. That was a big problem as well. Another huge problem is that this was not a good script. I gotta keep it real. The script was mediocre at best. And the only reason why I was able to give it a bit of a pass is because, number one, the actors have made it work. I thought Tom Hardy did a very good job playing Eddie Brock, aka Venom. I think he did a much better job, surprisingly, as he portrayed in the as Bane. As crazy that may sound, I actually liked the Dark Knight Rises, but I felt here he was his character. It seemed to be more of his character. But the stuff that really didn't work to me was just the fact is that some of the camera work was just shoddy. I mean, there's no excuse for that. The editing sometimes it not make it any better in this film, and to me, that's really was the heartbreaker here. Because overall, like I said, the design of Venom was great, the acting was fine. It's just they had a very sloppy story. This story was not really well planned. I mean, again, the motivation from the mad scientist who had corrupted this symbiote didn't make any sense. Him wanting to help him destroy the world never make any sense. It was just a lot of stuff that was being done. It's just like, what are your true motives? What are you trying to do here? What are you trying to merge with? You are aware that these sentient beings, if they get attached to the host, they're basically going to kill them, which was something of a big deal in terms of the storyline and plot of this film. And one of the main things that Eddie Brock was going through is that he was dying, and he was actually was on the verge of dying, and it was pretty well established. Yet they really didn't know how the symbiote was supposed to help him. I guess because he was eating heads, which was something that was never really established in any of the comic books that I read in Venom, that he eats heads to keep himself regenerating. I mean, that was one of the big things, and this was something I wish, honestly, and this is my opinion, they should never add on. Because in the comic book version, I think they should have kept that version where if the host stays with it too long, and he gets if he bonds with his host for far longer, he becomes permanently attached. One of the main things about the reason why Spider-Man had to detach himself from Venom was because, number one, if he didn't, it would be a permanent part of him, which became a permanent part of him with Eddie Brock. That's one of the main reasons why Spider-Man couldn't sense Eddie Brock, because they have joined to the point where they were now forever joined, at least in the first couple comic books that I've read. So that was a big deal to me, and to see how they actually put in that the symbiote was actually attacking his organs, kind of a big difference here with that. Big main change, but also inconsistent one, because in the end he rebonded with Eddie Brock, and now they're one, and it doesn't seem to be affecting him as much as we actually saw early in the film. So that always seemed to bother me a lot with that whole thing, and I kind of wish they didn't actually play that card a little bit. I thought they should have stayed with it. If he stays too attached to the host, he will become the host. But again, this is a different storyline. It's a different take on Spider-Man, on the Spider-Man lore, on Venom. So fine, so be it. That's the way it is going to be. I'm kind of curious how it's going to play into 2, as well as Carnage, which pretty sure will be the next big baddie in the Venom's storyline. But it is kind of wondering if Andy Serkis is going to keep that going, or is he going to completely ignore it altogether. But that was something that was very interesting, and that they have done, and I felt pretty much unnecessary to add that into the film. The story alone is just, it's not well flushed out, in my opinion. That's just it. You may think this is not a problem. I felt it was a problem. As a very end. But again, I felt the actors really did hold their own in this film. I thought that the film itself, while sloppy, was still entertaining when it needed to be entertained. I actually thought it was very good, in many ways, when it was good. On a scale of 1 to 4, is a 2-star film. It's not a terrible movie. Like I said, I had my popcorn. I sat down, and I enjoyed it, and it's still pretty much watchable right now. I saw it twice, and for a reason, I want to fresh up and see how what was good and what was not good, and refresh my memory of what I saw. Would I go back on the film? Not necessarily. I mean, it ain't one of those films that I can go back 5, 6, 7 times. It's just not one of those films. But for the most part, for good enjoyment, you know, it's harmless. It's not terrible in terms of what I've seen, but it's not something to hang my hat over too. I just hope that Venom 2 will step up their game a little bit and flush out some of the mistakes that they clearly had in this film. Which really brings to me, can Spider-Man coexist, or can they exist in this Spideyverse that Sony have put together? I think it really all depends. At one point, I think they can. I think they have already established an interesting storyline. It would be interesting to see how Spider-Man deal with Venom, as well as other villains that may be in here. Personally, I think that they should establish Spider-Man first before Venom 2. So that way we can actually see what they had in store in terms of storyline and structure. You know they want to do a Sinister Six down the road, so I felt they should work on that more than to just do these standalone films, because it would be kind of confusing. I really don't want to see another supervillain origin, but then especially when I don't feel that that there's no need for it. Here's a little bit of a exception to the rule. And for your information, yeah, that includes the Joker film, even though I do think, from what I've seen, it doesn't seem to tie into any of the comic books that I have read. This seemed to be more of a drama period piece. And if you heard these people saying a wartime, it's calling for Quentin Phoenix. Can I see the film first before I actually start saying that? I haven't seen the film yet. I know the trailer is great, but before we say Academy Awards, let's see what the film is first. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. But there's a whole lot of things they have to work on. I don't see Spider-Man going dark here. It just can't. I see the humor, but I felt that again, Tom Hardy's going to be at the mercy of a script that I don't know works well for this film. And all I got to do is go back to Batman. And I know people are going to say, well, Batman hasn't been rebooted in that such a way. Actually, yes, it did, because all you need to do is look at Tim Burton's Batman Returns, and you look at Joel Schumacher's Batman Forever and Batman and Robin. Keep in mind, that's supposed to take place at the same timeline, but it's clearly two different film franchises. The first two films were dark and gritty. The other two was meant for kids. And it didn't do that franchise any good. In fact, it actually aged the film a lot better than what it needed to be. So to me, I felt that if they're going to do something like this, if they're going to put these characters together, they have to establish, one, Spider-Man and how his role is going to be in this universe. It's very important. Because if they try, I don't think you can work the magic with MCU in a standalone Spider-Man film in this upcoming franchise. I just don't see it. Not unless you do some serious changes to the script. Not unless you do some serious changes in how you move forward with the Spider-Verse. There has to be some changes. I don't see it with this film. All right, Venom, and here's another thing I want to be very clear of. Venom was a very successful film for Sony. There's no denying that. But you know what? The budget, how much they made in this film, is very deceitful as well. Just because the film was highly successful doesn't mean that same audience is going to spend a couple bucks to support a sequel that they felt themselves did not felt was worth their money. Not unless they see something different coming out of the sequel. And all you have to do is look at sequels who made a lot of money the first try, but when it came to the second film, even though the film may have been good, failed to deliver at all levels in terms of the audiences, the marketing, as well as just making their money back. If they did make their money back, it was probably very small. And that's the thing I think that Sony needs to be mindful of, not to be fooled by the projection of how much Venom makes. If there is a buzz, there is a buzz. But if there's no buzz going around it, that tells you right there that not many people may be interested in it. What getting people to talk about Venom 2 really is the fact that they have a director they didn't expect to be directing, and that's Andy Serkis. I did not expect them to pick them up for directing duties, and that brings a new interesting twist on how that film is going to go approach. And now you also have Spider-Man that may be in the mix. So, to me, that's the buzz that's coming around here. That's the situation people are talking about. How are they going to tie into these films? And I think that Sony needs to be very, very careful. Because it's very clear they want to show the world that they can do Spider-Man film. That's not a problem. The problem is if they're sloppy up doing this. They have to learn their mistakes. Period. They have to learn. Otherwise, they just screw themselves. Plain and simple. But what's your opinion about this? I'd like to know what you're feeling about it. Did you like Venom? Did you didn't like Venom? Let me know in the comment section below. But until next time, this is J77 to take care, be safe, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.